Okay. We good?
So you have to read a Senate bill, is that right?
Yeah, I have to read some of this. So, soon as Sarah's ready. All right, good evening, and I'm Bill Bowie. I would like to call the December 14th Park Authority Board meeting to order. Virginia law authorizes the remote participation of board members, and provided that a policy exists to ensure that such remote participation is consistently administered, this board has approved policy 111. Any such remote attendance must be approved by the board as long as a physical quorum of the board is actually present. Voice of the remote participant is able to be heard by everyone in the room, and remote participation comports with the policy. We have 3 members of the board that will be participating remotely tonight, and they have received their preliminary approval. Dr. Carter, Faisal Khan, and Michael Thompson. Dr. Carter, she has not joined us yet. Okay, so Faisal, where are you participating from?
I'm participating from my residence in Providence District.
Okay, Mr. Thompson,
I am participating from Jackson Hole, Wyoming.
and you are Michael Thompson, right?
I am still Michael Thompson. Thank you.
Okay.
Sorry.
All right, no problem.
And Dr. Carter is now with us as well.
Dr. Carter, would you like to announce yourself?
Yes, my name is Cynthia Jacobs Carter, and I am participating from my home in Franconia District.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So pursuant to the Park Authority's Policy 111 for participation in meetings by electronic communication, I move that Dr. Cynthia Jacobs Carter, Faisal Khan, and Mike Thompson be permitted to participate remotely in this meeting because it comports with the policy we adopted, and a physical quorum is present here at the Park Authority Boardroom, 9th floor, Heritage Building, and that they can also be heard.
And I second the motion.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. That motion carries. And with that, we will begin our committee meetings tonight. We'll start with Park Ops and Chairman Gorham.
This is Linwood Gorham. I'd like to call the Park Operations Committee to order. In doing so, I'd like to turn it immediately over to Dan Sutherland.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome in person again. Nice seeing you all again. So tonight we have a presentation combining one like we do every couple of years on the Massenburg Grant volunteer matching fund program, as well as we've put a little equity analysis into the overview of the program and how it's been doing over the last several years, as well as how as equity fits into the program. Next, oh, sorry. Just a reminder, the program started in fiscal year 2000. The primary intent of the program was to help encourage public and private funding for capital improvement and non-capital improvement in the parks. It typically is funded through allocations from the bond or bond premium over the years. It is not a selective grant program. All applications are considered and are on level footing. So there's no sort of scoring or anything like that. And as long as they meet the criteria, they are considered eligible for a grant. The number awarded over the years has ranged from 3 to 16. We are currently at 206 grants total, and we are just over $2 million in grants, with a grant total of 1,000 to 20,000 over the years. And just a reminder, back in 2014, the grant match was $10,000 max. And then the total cumulative value of the program is about $15.5 million worth of improvements over the years in the parks. So great program. Just a little bit of breakdown on those numbers. We show you the summary over the last 23 years of all the different projects that occurred each year, the values combined in grant, as well as the value of the projects themselves combined. And as you see, the totals there at the bottom of 15.5 and $2 million worth of grants. So just some annual averages there, about 9 a year, with a grant match of about $9,722 average over those years. Project cost averaged at about $75,000. The total grant money approved in a year is about $87,000 on average. And again, the average project total cost is $672,000 a year. Just a little background on the application process. So we receive the grants requests any time of the year. We review the requests and it could take, depending on availability and the number of questions that staff may has and the how complicated the project may be, it could take anywhere from 6 to about 10 weeks review process time. And then, of course, we prepare them for committee and then eventually for the board, if the board approves the request to move forward to the board for full vote. And so over the years, we've typically done a couple type of grant payment processes. Oftentimes the group pays for the project completely themselves and we reimburse them half the costs. In some instances, though, especially for the higher dollar grants, the group donates their portion of the project and we manage the project ourselves along with the grant money itself. Oftentimes we have donated here recently through the Grant Foundation to try to further that partnership with the foundation and this whole process. Part of the grant criteria is the contributions must cover all project costs minus the grant amount. And then unless the project utilizes other available resources, like we could have an operating dollars that partner with the program, or we could have other bond dollars, proffer dollars, depending on the size of the project, there could be a partnership that way. Majority of the projects actually occur with just donated money and the grant money, but on occasion we do have some higher dollar projects or special unique circumstances where there are three-way partnerships with the funding. Again, the maximum grant award is $20,000 per project, but no greater than 50% of the project cost. The group may apply for multiple grants and multiple projects in a year, as long as the total grant amount does not exceed $20,000 within a fiscal year. A group's match may consist of cash or in-kind services. And then grants are awarded only for eligible projects, again, that meet the criteria that I'm about to cover here in a second. So the grant must take place on land that is owned or managed by the Park Authority. The project must be consistent with a master plan if applicable. Project addresses a Park Authority service need and is available to the general public. Project scope and design must meet all relevant standards, code requirements. Project is appropriate to be funded through capital development dollars, may be used for capital projects, but not capital equipment. Grant funds may be used for may not be used for operating expenses or maintenance. The project itself can be a multi-year, but it's only eligible for one grant per project. Projects already completed or not eligible. There's a little bit of wiggle room we use there for about 6 months, because sometimes timing is such that we need to get the projects going earlier before the board has a chance to take action with it. So we take that into account and give a little bit of leeway with that one. Grants may not be used for purchasing sponsorships, such as memorial benches or such like that. And the projects come under the ownership of the Park Authority, though in some instances we may enter into agreements for the grant requester to maintain the improvement after it's completed being built, like in the case of batting cages or something like that. So from the equity analysis, we worked with our GIS group to do some analysis across the county to show where the projects occurred within vulnerable areas and outside vulnerable areas. And then we also looked at the number of dollars, the number of projects, and then type of projects within those areas. And just something to note, as part of our 2022 equity plan, we also had a couple projects or, mission statements, I guess, with that, to begin mapping and tracking and assessing our capital investments in our parks relative to the opportunity areas, as well as reviewing the Master Grant Program to see how it is gelling with our equity initiatives, as well as if there's possibly any changes that could be made to the grant program to further our equity support. So as we get into the findings that we had, just a reminder that each project is funded by the grant plus the group's matching donation, which is equal to or greater than the grant amount. And that sometimes we do have additional funds to help fund the project, as I said, with bond projects or bond related monies or proffer monies or the like. So what we have there is two columns there of project lists for outside the vulnerable areas and inside the vulnerable areas or the opportunity areas. So the percentage of parkland is 86% of the current park holdings is outside of opportunity areas, 14% is within. For the project grant distribution, out of the 206 projects, 155 or 75% outside, 51 projects or 25% inside. With the distribution, it broke down 76% outside, 24% inside, and you see the numbers, how that breaks down. The average grant amount outside 9740 and inside the opportunity areas was 9600. Project spending broken down 82% outside and 18% within the opportunity areas. And then the average project cost was 81,000 and change and 55,000 and change inside the opportunity areas. A few pie charts for you to further just kind of graphically show you the breakdown. We also added here the Fairfax County acreage. The light green is the areas outside the opportunity areas. So it's 80% of the county, 81% of the county is outside of high and very high vulnerability areas, and 19% are within. Again, from a FCPA acreage perspective, 14% within, 86% without. And again, graphically just showing the project distribution of 25% within, 75% out, and the project spending 18% within, 82% without. Here's a map of the county, and it represents all the projects that occurred across the county. Now, many of these are stacked plus signs, and so there could actually be 10, 12, or multiple projects that occurred. And so you're not going to be able to see 206 plus signs across the county here, but it does represent where the projects occurred. And as you can see with the legend there, that the high and the very high vulnerability areas are the darker blue shades. So you'll be able to see not only geographically how the projects had been dispersed across the county, but also in relation to the opportunity areas. We also showed you within a couple charts there on the left-hand side, how the projects broke down, not only within the opportunity areas, but within developed and undeveloped parks. A developed park would of course be one with something like a facility like a playground or athletic field, a rec center, golf course. And then undeveloped would typically just be a wooded park, maybe a trail within it, but no sort of developed features like a playground or a court or something like that. So you see a vast majority of the projects did occur, 95% of them within developed parks. And then you see the breakdown again of just short of 24% within opportunity areas, and then 72% in the rest of the county. Here's a breakdown of the number of projects by park. So far, we have had projects occur across 90+ sites, which is pretty great. And this is a list of the top sites with 4 or more projects. So as you see there, starting at the top, Green Spring is a very popular site. And then Turner Farm kind of bringing up a tie there, which very quietly. So wouldn't have believed it. But what we also show on the right-hand side is the vulnerability index and how that applies to each one of those parks. And so as you can see with Green Spring and with Franconia, formerly Lee District, those are 2 parks in the inside opportunity areas. I do want to point out something that's not a typo, but Sully Historic Site showing not applicable because it's not directly surrounded by any sort of residential housing. So that area does not have a rating at this point. Another breakdown here is on the project types. So what we have here is 2 columns, one showing all 206 projects, another one showing just the 51 projects that occurred in opportunity areas. Of the breakdown here, over on the left-hand side here, you have percentages in the blue. On the right percentages, those are the breakdown of the percentage of projects that occurred out of the 206 total grant projects we had. In other words, out of 206, we had 80 athletic field type projects, or 38.8%. Of the little offset percentage totals there that represent subcategories of athletic fields, athletic field type projects. So infrastructure would be fencing, bleacher pads, such like that. A practice facility would be batting cages. Renovations could be, infield renovations or complete turf renovations. The rest of it pretty much speaks for itself. But anyway, those numbers are percentages based upon the total number of athletic field projects. So out of 80 projects on athletic fields, 26 or 32% of them were infrastructure-based projects. So then comparably for inside the opportunity areas, we have the columns on the right showing the number of projects, again, 51 total projects. And just like the columns on the left, we have the broken down by project type and also subcategories for athletic fields. And again, the total number of projects being 51 or 24.8% were within opportunity areas. Last slide for you is just a sort of cost breakdown to give you an idea here when it comes to the percentage of the grant match of a project. So in other words, 0 to 10,000 value projects are shown here all the way up to $2,001 and greater projects, and tried to show you both charts here. The one on the left is a listing for when the grant program only offered a match of up to $10,000. And the chart on the right shows you the projects that have occurred when the grant match was raised to $20,000 in, again, FY 2014. And as you see there, also broke down the percentages, the sort of dividing line I have there in both of the charts is where the match is actually at 50% or less, or not less, but 50%. And then below the line there, it shows projects that exceed that. And the actual match is a lower percentage of the project cost because they were higher dollar projects. And then you see the breakdown within the opportunity areas of the number of projects that occurred out of the total number of projects. So in the past, prior to 2014, there was 36 projects out of 122. And then after the grant was raised, it's 15 out of 84. So where that left us is we want to take a little bit longer and to review based upon the current study we're doing with the PROSA analysis and all of the data that's going into that, and see if that shines a light on anything for us that we need to make some changes or bring to the board to potentially make some changes in the grant program, or if the board feels its program is doing great and it's meeting its goals, not only for the program as it was first envisioned, but also in today for the equity aspects of it that we also want to make sure we're supporting of it. So after the PROSA analysis is complete and we further look at this and how it works with that information, we may have some more further recommendations for you.
I've got a couple questions.
So
The vulnerability index that you're referring to, when you're coming up with your figures here, is that something that's developed by us internally, or is that a county thing, or it's a county thing?
it's a county thing, but I believe we may be trying to work some variation of it ourselves. I'm not sure what is exactly called, but we are trying to work on some sort of variation of an index ourselves. But that is a county.
Okay. So
one,
how many tiers are there in that index?
5.
Low, very low.
Yeah, very low, low, average, high, and very.
Right.
So 5.
So we have the
Uh,
county has
oh.
a baseline for the vulnerability index, and then that everybody in the county is using. And then based on the type of analysis, you can add other factors. So we added a few other factors that help. But for the most part, yes.
To me, this is completely logical, that this is not necessarily equitable, because the communities that have the money get more money because they match. But it seems like actually maybe not an absolutely perfect solution, but a real easy solution, a good solution is just like there's 5 tiers in the index, multipliers by what it takes to get the matching grant. Like if you wanted 20,000 and you're in a very not vulnerable area, it takes 20,000 to get 20,000. But if you're in a vulnerable area, make it so it only takes 5,000 to get 20,000. And you could study the ratios and everything, but I think that's this is one of the things that might be easier than some of the other things we'll face in the future. And frankly, me personally, I'd like to see that at least studied as a remedy to the inequity of this thing. Certainly wildly successful program already. We don't want to do anything to harm it, but I think that would only enhance it. Anyway, does anybody else have any thoughts or questions? Tim?
Yeah.
Tim Hackman. Yes, I have been thinking along the same lines as you, Linwood, of having some sort of a tiered percentage sliding scale or a contribution level for the program. A couple other questions though with respect to the existing program and a potential alternate program. Capital equipment is excluded. Is that because of the fact that the funds are coming from a bond? Okay, so one of my thoughts was perhaps we should think about, we really need to find a broader way to leverage available and potential partnerships. So perhaps we should think about establishing a parallel program like a Maston Brook, funded perhaps by the Park Foundation's endowment or some of our operational funds that would cover capital equipment, operational equipment, maintenance projects. If we have people out there who are willing to put in volunteer hours or actual cash to help us do our job on a daily basis, seems to me we should try to find ways to leverage that. So we ought to take a look at whether there be a possibility to create a parallel Maston Brook program for those kind of opportunities.
Mike, you have a question or comment?
Yeah, a couple things. One, I think it's important to realize there are also other county programs that encourage and discourage certain types of behavior. So for example, one of the reasons you're going to see athletic fields get so emphasized is that there's actual county program where part of the kitty tax is taken and set aside for groups to draw on to either renovate or put in turf fields in partnership. So there's actually a separate program that is encouraging the different youth and adult sports organizations to pursue that effort. So one, we should, I don't know what other programs like that may exist in other areas that encourage certain behaviors, but I'm pretty sure that every time there's a big field put in, there's then a request for it used to be 10, now $20,000 Matson Brook grant request to go into that project. So one, we should look at that. Second, I appreciate we're going to continue to look at this. One thing that did strike me is that if I understand correctly, 14% of the Park Authority's acreage is in a high to very high vulnerability area. And yet 25% of the grant project distribution is in high to very high vulnerability areas, and 18% of the project spending distribution is there. So, I mean, I think there are lots of things to look at, but I think I think there's I think there's a variety of things to look at. But what struck me is I thought those numbers would be very different. I thought, okay, 14% of the acreage in the county, parks are in this area, and only 4% of the grant money or projects are in that area. I was actually pleasantly surprised, frankly, that there's a lot more projects in those high and very high vulnerability areas getting those grant requests and projects made. I also think, and I have a question for y'all, is I know in the past we have taken services towards somebody else's match. Have we, every once in a while that pops up on the board and we debate that. Have we actually put into policy that we do that? Or is that something that is theoretically, every time it comes up, could become a debate again? And should we look at proactively making it a policy if we haven't?
So Sarah and Amy have quizzical looks on their face, so I'll let them talk across the thing to figure out the answer to that. But for the first thing, I just wanted to point out, when we first started this exercise, I think that we were right there with you, Mike. We assumed that these numbers would be far more skewed the opposite, way. So we're also pleasantly surprised. I think that we, when we talk about having more, work to do, we definitely do want to sort of go over and above to fix the equities. There are also different ways to look at the data. Greenspring Gardens is phenomenal, but does that really work in Greenspring Gardens, really hit that equity area? And if we take out the projects in Greenspring Gardens, then what does that, look like? But I don't want to go through this and say we're digging for stuff, but we were also very, very surprised at how the numbers came out. Did I talk long enough?
And to your point, project type has a big impact on it. In other words, there's clearly a need to try and get more fields into certain communities, and we need to figure out how to get that done, and that the model that has been used in other parts of the county may not work. And so it's to your point, it's not just because of the garden, but it may also be that most of the fields, the athletic fields, are in other areas. So there could be actually inequities in the way the types of programs are distributed as well.
I actually interpreted that 14% differently, and I'll have to go back and look at it. I may have interpreted it wrong. But if you're looking at just square miles of equity areas, vulnerable areas and not vulnerable and stuff like that, that's not necessarily a good representation at all of how the monies are spent. And I think you have to look at populations within those areas, because that's what we need to do as a county, is to provide resources to individuals more evenly, not per acre of parkland or acre of acreage in. So I'm not sure that that 14% is really representative of reality, and certainly not population.
And that's the next step is, that's why the last thing was talking about PROSA. That's where PROSA is going to take us in general. And Dan did a phenomenal job and GIS staff did a phenomenal job taking us to this point to let PROSA take us.
Ron and then Jim.
I agree with Tim. I think if it's not in policy, it needs to be. Because once we have it in policy to identify work in kind as an activity that can be towards Maston Brooks, then people will understand it exists. I spend a lot of my time explaining what Maston Brook is in the first place, let alone the fact that people can do it as a work in kind project. We don't advertise this enough. What we're doing, we don't advertise it. The second is I'll talk about the population issue. You identify, for example, if you go back to the slide for the locations, you identify Pine Ridge as in a low area. But Pine Ridge serves almost all of Mason District with baseball and soccer facilities. And so everything gets done at Pine Ridge is impacting the population that it services, not the fact that there are upscale homes around the park. Same is true with Hidden Oaks. Same is true with Mason District Park. They're all in places where you would assume they're not exactly representing the group of population around them. They're representing a much wider group. And until we can calculate that in with identifying what's low and what's high, I don't think we're getting to the populations we're after.
That was the reason for my first question. I was asking if we were doing it internally or if some other agency was doing it, because I don't think it's necessarily, I don't know what the right word is. I'm thinking appropriate. That's maybe not the right word. Expertise, maybe that's not the right word. But if the county is really serious about equity, they need to have somebody other than the park authority that establishes what the different vulnerabilities are. And that's not something that I think we should necessarily be in the business of. We should follow whatever the county or the greater organizations stuff is. If we have that option, I think it's easier if we do it like that.
And our maps are going to look a little different because if you have, to Ron's point, if you have a park that's in a high, a low vulnerability, very low vulnerability, right on the edge. And our parks serve a community. The index identifies communities. Those are two slightly different things. So if we have a park that's right here that serves this entire low vulnerability community, we're focused on who that park is serving and not necessarily exactly geographically where it is. So we're going to be going a lot more into the weeds on that when we make decisions, park decisions. We're not going to do that in a vacuum of just looking at this map. We really need to look at the constituency that we're serving. Sure.
We need to look at, I mean, that gets into the whole park classification system if you're talking about that. Because the way we classify parks certainly doesn't fit within the model that we're talking about here. And we made such a big deal about, and a lot of work went into how we classify parks. The other thing to note is, and this is going to be a constant, having served on the redistricting commission, while we are a majority minority county now, what we found were that communities of interest that grew, big populations that grew, they grew in place. They did not transverse the county. So where you saw, Asians growing in a community, Asians didn't move from Springfield to Herndon. Latinos didn't move from Herndon to anywhere. So that needs to be taken into consideration too, if we're gonna serve those communities, because they're not going anywhere.
Jim, I'm sorry that Bill jumped in front of you
Oh, that's
there,
all right.
but what he had to say
He's
was,
gonna-
what he
I
had
can
to
be
say was,
flagellated.
I've got a couple questions and observations. One is the criteria that's used for opportunity, vulnerability. What are the criteria for that again? Remind me.
Vulnerable areas are the high and the very high on the index.
Let me rephrase it. What factors are in the index? What's determining that they're high or
I
very
don't
high?
know any, this is gonna be the first time I've actually asked the audience. Does anybody remember? Josh, do you know? Can you come up? They can hear you.
I don't know all the criteria, but they're socioeconomic things. There's been in the past, household income, disadvantage, rental opportunities or household ownership. A series of socioeconomic criteria, though. It's 8 in total. All of them get a score that ultimately add up to that vulnerability.
Kind of what I guess. An observation with regard to that and the use of this GIS tool. And it's really a view from like 50,000, if not 100,000 feet.
Mhm.
And I'm encouraged by the comments of all the colleagues and the staff with regard to how this is going to be brought down to ground level, for lack of a better word. I would caution against using the template because I don't think we can that other county departments might use, because we're offering an entirely different service.
Mhm.
For example, fire stations aren't going to be going through the same kind of exercise with the same degree of complexity that we're going to be dealing with when we do this. Frankly, it kind of makes my head hurt. I'll try and keep that, in line with the appropriate medication, but I'm looking forward to what PROSA might do. And in particular, I don't know whether we can have another presentation on PROSA that helps us figure out what ground level observations are going to be and what services are going to be looked at. I think each one of the board members and the staff raised key points tonight with regard to things we ought to think about in putting together PROSA. And I know the staff's already proceeding with PROSA, but just that suggestion that a lot of good ideas came here tonight. The last thing I'd say is I don't know quite how to deal with the equity with regard to how we deal with the money. But I guess my view is that's something we do need to deal with. On the other hand, it seems to me we need to sort out a lot more of what really we're dealing with before we would modify Master Brook in any way. So those are my thoughts. Thank you.
anybody else? Thank you very much, Dan.
Thank you all.
Anybody else have anything to bring before the Park Operations Committee? Being none, I adjourn the committee.
Okay. And Quincy, and I will now call the budget committee.
I think you gotta wait.
Huh?
I think you gotta wait.
6:10.
No.
6:10. It's
There's no.
Oh, I'm
handout
sorry.
for budget.
on the back. Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay, who's gonna present? I'll let you guys introduce yourselves and the.
Good evening. I'm Josh Coleman, Business Office Manager with the Park Authority.
Mike Peter, Administration Division Director.
So here tonight to go through the annual proposed fee adjustments and the fee process, and go through a presentation and then action item on proposing or publishing the proposed fee adjustments. So quick review here of the calendar. We've got the meeting tonight, obviously, with the action to authorize the advertisement of the proposal and set the date of the public comment meeting that we have. We have an annual 30-day public comment period that we run through where the public's invited to make comments on the proposed fees. We have that virtual public comment meeting in the middle of that 30-day period. And then ultimately in March, the board action to approve the proposed fee adjustments and fee adjustments taking effect in April. Before we jump into some of the specifics on the package, I wanted to give a little background in terms of how we work towards our fee adjustments and some information on that side. So, generally it's a multi-step process as we start looking at how we develop a fee package for the upcoming year. And it really relates to the revenue fund and some of our net goals and requirements that we have before us. So first step is really what are our net requirements or goals for the upcoming fiscal year, any obligations we have with the revenue fund itself. From there, we look and try to figure out what our expenses are doing, project where we're going, where we anticipate our expenses or what we anticipate them to be based off our current operations. And then finally, that turns into our revenue requirements or budget. What kind of revenue do we need in order to meet our required net goals? So, when we look at our budget, typically the revenue fund is required to operate net positive or greater. We know that from the fee policy, we also look to potentially have any investment from the revenue fund or a positive net in a number of different areas. So here, if we do have a positive net in the revenue fund, we look to invest in revenue sinking fund, deferred revenue for programs, a requirement that's before us, F&E for capital projects, revenue fund facility enhancements, investment for technology or other projects, and making sure our revenue stabilization reserve is fully funded. So as an example, as we look forward to FY24, our net goal is really around $4 million in the revenue fund. And that's for, in this year, a number of items you see before you as an example of investment in the revenue sinking fund, money towards the stabilization reserve as we continue to build back after COVID, and then some money again towards deferred revenue for summer programs, which was an audit finding from a couple years ago that we continue to build up. In other years, it may be more money towards the sinking fund or other areas that we need to invest in. But for this year, again, we're looking at a $4 million net goal as we move into FY24. So knowing that FY24 net goal of $4 million from the revenue fund, we start to look at what's happening from an expense standpoint. So CPI in the first half of 2022, 6.9%, cumulative 10.9% over the past 2 years. And we're obviously feeling those expenditures as we continue to move forward here. Employee compensation has been a significant impact. We know we raise that up every year or talk about that every year as part of the fee package. This year in particular, and looking as we move forward, we expect that to be a continued significant impact on the revenue fund. So in FY23 alone, we estimate that currently at a $1.8 million impact on the spending side. And that was a significant MRA and performance-based increase, minimum wage increases from the state of Virginia that will continue, and competitive pay rate adjustments that we've had to make to stay competitive in things like lifeguards, summer camp counselors, positions that are that we're struggling to fill without higher pay rates, bonuses, things to attract those employees. So the impact that we're feeling on the spending side is real. We currently project $48+ million as we look towards FY24 in terms of where our spending is headed. Just an example, when we talk about staff expenses, I wanted to highlight really where we've started the fiscal year and just show the impact from a salary standpoint with that MRA and performance-based increases. We've actually had 3% fewer hours worked to start this fiscal year, yet our salary costs are 3% higher. So through Q1, we're up about $500,000 in staff expenses despite working 3% fewer hours. And when we look at raises in the future, or MRAs in the future, and the impact on the revenue fund, every 1% is approximately $230,000 to $275,000 in additional expenses that we book towards. So recognizing that we're talking about a $48 million plus budget in FY24 and that we see these expenses continuing to rise, we start to focus on what's the revenue target or the area we need to be at from a fee standpoint that lets us achieve just that simple net goal or requirement that we have. So here's an example of kind of the logic that we go through We had $49 million in revenue in FY '22. The board and programmatic fee increases have previously been approved about $600K. We estimate another 1.4 million in growth. That's continuing to recover post-COVID and things like rec centers and resource management locations. When we talk about programs, continued growth on that side. And that leaves us about $1 million short of where we need to be from a revenue budget standpoint, again, to meet those net goals and obligations. So as we look towards this fee package, we're really looking again to target approximately $1 million in fees based off that natural rise in expenses that I was just talking about. So for this year's fee package, and I know you have the full packet and every individual fee that we're talking about, there's been a few areas that we've really focused on and make up the majority of the fee package. So golf demand and golf fees in particular are a significant part of the package this year. Demand has remained very strong post-COVID. Our play is still 40 to 50% above where we were pre-COVID, and where we saw a very slight drop in 2020, end of 2021, beginning of 2022, as golf came down a little bit. We've really maintained a steady amount of play on the golf courses over the last year. And so we feel the demand and interest in golf is very strong in an area that's really ripe to look at from a fee standpoint. In line with that, other outdoor activities continue to do very well post-COVID. And so you'll see in the fee package, again, priorities around water mine, picnic and shelter reservations, campgrounds, amusements. These outdoor activities have been in high demand and are areas that we feel, could use adjustment. A few other items, we've maintained our consistent rec center lap lane approach, which has generally been small graduated increases every year. And so that's consistent in here. And then lastly, as you may have seen, if you looked through every individual fee in there, we've looked to create some consistency in how we do room rentals across the entire system. And that's resulted in a more standardized process to charge room rentals between resource management sites and park services sites. And in addition, resulted in some recommendations for removals from the fee package just based off of changing that the current way we charge those fees. So the value we're looking at for this package is just under $1 million, 953,000. Obviously, a significant increase over last year, but as we just went through, we've been looking at and experiencing a significant increase on the expenditure side. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions on the presentation. The item before us today is simply to advertise the proposed fee adjustment and authorize the date of the public comment meeting. Nothing beyond that. The more detailed approvals happen in that March period.
So everybody knows we need money. Everybody knows when we charge a fee, it's the opposite of equitable. I can probably think of a reason not to raise any of these fees. I don't know that we can be there yet, but to me, the low-hanging fruit in this proposal, if you're going to try to not do some of these things that are proposed, are the amusements and the water mine. I think those are the most kiddie things of the group. I think the people, often young families, need the help more than anyone else. So if we were going to compromise on anything and back out of it, that would be my input. The water mines. The only other thought I had during the presentation, do we have any expectation at all that attendance will continue to go up as we get COVID hopefully further behind us, and we'll naturally have more revenue without raising fees in some of these things?
That's where that $1.4 million in growth was tied to that idea that we continue to get attendance coming back, and the trends over the last year or two as we recover continue. I would point out if that was to stop, we'd have more pressure on us from a fee standpoint. And so that's building in, a projection that we are continuing that growth pattern.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, two things, one specific and one general. I'd like not this year because we're here. But next year, I'd like to see what a 2-year package would look like on fees. Because I feel like every year we come back to this, and the one argument I hear from everyone is every year I have to pay more. I'd like to see us either with a 2 or a 3-year cycle so that we can look ahead and say, okay, we will not be changing these fees. Even though we're going to hit you this year a little harder, next year we will not be touching these fees. That's the general. The specific was, I was looking over the Hogue Park piece, and it talked about a one cost for the garden plots. But I thought in Hogue Park, there were going to be 2 types of garden plots. There were going to be a community garden and regular garden plots. There's like 2 sizes. And I was wondering why for Hogue specifically, there was only one cost for all the garden plots. You can get that later.
One type of garden plot, correct? There isn't a community. I think that was the initial thought that maybe we would have a combination, but I think it's just now individual plots.
Okay.
Is that correct, Laura?
So can I just, I just want to comment on, I would love to go to a multi-year. I just wanted to make the point that there's the majority of what causes us to have these meetings and talk about fees are out of our control, and we don't know it. We only know it on a year-by-year basis, and it's the compensation package. So when the compensation package is decided based on MRI, I keep saying, want to say MRI. Based on MRA, then we retroactively then have to take account for the increase in staff costs that come with the compensation package, which we don't know in a, you know, the market could crash completely and we could be talking about a 1%. You know, this year we're at a 5.4, 5.6, 5.6% increase. So that's really what drives. And did I answer that correctly? Is that?
Tim, so further along the lines of the comment Jay just made, when you calculate your proposed fee adjustments, that's an April 1st to a March 30th fee schedule. Does the employment rate just go through the July 1st until the next fiscal year, 2024 starts, or does it, do you anticipate a fee adjustment that then covers the period from July 1st to March 30th in the fee structure?
Yeah, the fee, good question. The fee adjustment is actually fiscal year focused. So you're seeing it effective kind of July 1 through. So even though the fees go into effect in April, we typically pick up a little bit of revenue, but that 953,000 and what we tie that to is actually the next complete fiscal year. So you're seeing the full year impact, which we would then also equate with the staff side when they experience their increases always at the beginning of July.
Right, it's beginning of July, and so that's built into your proposal. Okay.
And generally, those fees that are paid for classes and programs in April are generally prepaying for summer participation.
No, correct. But the point being, if the county adopts a employee compensation package that is less than what you have projected for the next fiscal year, then that would, Ron, relieve pressure on our following fiscal year fee adjustments, presumably.
Or if the county funds
Right.
the compensation package for the revenue fund, then we would not have to increase the fees
Exactly.
so much if that pressure doesn't get transferred along to our.
Or some other equitable program, right?
Yes.
Yes, a question, I guess, about golf revenue. I thought I'd heard that actual participation this past year exceeded that pre-COVID. Is that correct?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Right. But we're estimating that for budget purposes, it's going to continue to grow at some pace beyond beyond where it's grown over the last year.
Most of the growth is actually associated with rec centers and RMD and anticipating golf to stay steady. Where the golf side comes in is that a large portion of the fees in the package this year are tied to golf. So assuming that play stays consistent and steady like it has over the last year, but that fees are adding to the revenue on that side.
Thank you.
Most of the growth comes from the rec center and RMD side.
Okay, any other questions? Isel, Cynthia, Mike? Okay. Is there a consensus to move this item forward?
Yes.
Okay, now, mid-year budget review.
I'll just move over. Michael Peter, I'm the, again, the Administration Division Director, and I'm here just with a quick item that we're presenting. And I'd like to first acknowledge that we have Nicole Barnes and we have Tanya Mills here with us. They're our leadership on the financial management and budget side, and they're the ones who always make sure I have the right information when we get here. So thank you for being here today. Next slide. Oh, right here. So we have one request for an action item tonight. Generally, if you remember last year, we came at third quarter and we requested a budget revision and adjustment in the revenue and operating fund based on our projected expenses and our projected revenue for the year. We're coming now because we've been working with staff to make sure that they are encumbering and planning for all the expenditures for the year now, as opposed to sort of waiting and seeing what capacity is going to look like. So at this point in time, we are projecting continued success in golf, and we're also monitoring camp program and other registrations, which are tracking ahead of expectations. And what we're asking to do tonight is to both recognize additional revenue, which would get us to the $50 million level, which is what we're projecting on the conservative side of our projections right now, and to increase our expenditures associated with that. So you see that there's actually no net change in terms of what we're requesting here. But it is important to note that the increase in the compensation budget is once again to accommodate the MRA that occurred in FY 2023. And we've also seen inflationary increases on the operating side, where some contractual costs are increasing as much as 30%. Therefore, we're requesting this increase for our expenditures to move ahead by $4,261,102 in revenue as well. And we don't expect additional adjustments as we go into the fiscal year, the rest of the fiscal year, and we will be reporting on all of these revenues at our mid-year review coming up in just a few months.
Questions? Consensus to move this item forward.
Yes.
Okay. Mike?
Very much.
Okay, that said. That said, I will now call the Planning and Development Committee order. So. All right, I'll let you introduce yourselves. I'm not sure who's going to present what.
Hi, my name is Kelly Davis, Project Manager, Planning and Development. I'm here for the Laurel Hill Restroom Building scope approval. With the completion of phase 1 of the Central Green project down at Laurel Hill, the restroom building is part of the phase 2 project funding, and part of the project includes the installation of a new restroom building that's 32 by 52 feet long, ADA walkway from the parking lot up to the building, and these related utilities, sewer line, water line, and electric. That's it.
All right. Any questions on the Laurel, on this item?
Move forward.
Just to move it forward?
Yep. Yes.
Okay. Next one, Cumberland Rec Center.
Good evening. My name is Sayonara Aguilera. I'm a project manager for Planning and Development, and I'm here to present the scope approval for the Cub Run Rec Center Child Care Facility at Solid District. We're requesting approval of the project scope of work to create a new child care space in the existing fitness center facility. We are adding a child care facility within the Cub Run Rec Center to enhance the customer experience and increase usage of the facility. It also would be an additional benefit of membership for the FCPA to recruit new members and retain current members in the space. We are requesting scope approval and action today, December 14th, based on the scope estimate of project funding of $1.3 million. That's it.
Yeah, that's it.
Any questions?
Oh,
Yes. Bill.
Go right ahead.
so what this does is takes away fitness space area in order to turn it into childcare. And what was the cost?
1.3.
4.3? 1.3. So this is consistent with the expectation that we would have of what the facility would look like when we get to the renovation phase of this facility totally. That's my basic question. The other one was obviously, are we talking to schools anymore?
Well, that was my deal, is, how much more money are we gonna invest in Cub Run
Right.
without having the school situation resolved? Because, we've been talking about this for 10 years now. It's 2023, our gig's up in 2030.
Right.
And this thing's not gonna be resolved anytime soon. So, how much money do we invest in Cub Run until we have a solution to the school situation? It just doesn't make any sense.
That was my question. I think that we don't want to be improving something that we're just.
That we're gonna get rid of.
So,
And there's the real possibility in 7 years, we're gonna walk away from this. So, that's a question. And we also have the possibility, we need to settle this sooner rather than later. There's a possibility the entire school board may flip next year.
that could happen.
And that'll make it even worse to have to go through this again. So, I don't know,
Whose district is this in?
this is Sullivan.
Yeah. Yeah, it depends when,
I would kind of put this,
What's your opinion of that, Maggie?
we've been wanting to do this for a long time, resolving this issue. And we're not making any traction. Not getting any traction.
I mean,
So,
that being said, this renovation is probably the similar renovation we're gonna want to be making at all the other centers too. So on scope approval, I don't know as I have a problem with it. But when it comes to actually doing the work, I'm not sure I would be, until this other issue is resolved, I'm ready to vote on that.
Well, what is the time frame to go to construction between right now, if it's approved and us actually spending the money?
Yeah, the completion is a plan for summer 2023.
Paul Shirey, Planning and Development. That's completion in summer 2023. So start with the winter, spring of 23.
We would bid it.
So we bid it out.
FY, physical year.
Calendar year.
2023.
Calendar year.
Calendar year.
So
This
if-
was a recommendation that was made through the financial sustainability study that we add
Yeah.
childcare to Cub Run. So this has been in the works for the past couple of years. Cub Run is one of the facilities financially that it's really struggling. And this is one area that we feel like we can help boost membership if we can provide this additional benefit to pass holders. We know it's a community with a lot of young children, and that when parents go to work out, the expectation is that they would have childcare. So, I think that we can restart conversations with schools about the lease, while we kind of work through the bid process for the project.
We had a very good meeting. I don't know if Ken would like to with the schools last week. So, I mean, reopening, I don't know that we're going to be able to get to a resolution before we'd have to go to construction. But perhaps we could start the conversation by then and report back by the next board meeting, which wouldn't take us off schedule. Just making sure. I'm looking at my people. Would not take us off schedule if we just defer this to the first meeting in, at least to have.
Would slip a month,
But would it slip the project to approve this in the beginning of January?
I would just shift back a month. Sure.
I think also one of the overall analysis may be, do we get our money back or do we keep ourselves on even keel between now and 2030 by spending this money along the lines of what Sarah was saying? Is the incremental revenue that we will achieve by spending this more than offsetting the cost?
Cost.
And I guess would agree with that comment. Plus, delaying this doesn't really increase any leverage with regard to resolving the other issue.
That's not gonna make a difference.
It might actually improve it if more members of the community are using the facility and they're using it for purposes other than school purposes.
Yes.
Right.
And delaying it could increase the costs of doing the work.
Exactly. All right.
Just, and I appreciate, all this discussion makes sense. That said, we can't keep pushing off trying to resolve Cub Run.
Exactly.
And I think that, restarting conversations with the school board is great, but we've done that with at least 2 different school boards. Relatively different school boards. I think, I don't know what the solution is. I don't know if it's involving the Board of Supervisors. I don't know what it is, but I think that this needs to be resolving this issue needs to be a high priority, because we face a very real possibility that we are upgrading a facility that the schools are going to turn around and use for whatever they want to use it for come 2030. And I think that we need to make resolving Cub Run a significant priority, both in terms of the rec center, but also in terms of the other discussions that were had about things to do there, like a track and everything else.
Yeah, my comment is just it's only gonna delay it a month. And anyway, with that said, Maggie, kind of please indicate which way you want to go on this, because I'm gonna follow your lead.
This issue with Cub Run Rec Center has been around since I started on this board. And anytime we've opened it and poked at it, it's been everybody agrees, it's all verbal. And I just, in our environment right now, I just don't trust any verbal agreements or anything that's not in writing. And because there's always the possibility of a change of personnel and a change of attitude. I just feel that, we're putting ourselves in jeopardy every time we go forwards with something like this. I would like to have a little more understanding and confidence that we are going to get this thing resolved, a timeline or something. And right now, I have no confidence that we're going to get this resolved. And if we start putting this money into it, it would be tragic if we had to stop halfway. And I'd like to see the rec center improved and better used. And it's tragic that we keep having to have this. So I would like to postpone it for a month and get something real on the agenda, something real with a schedule that says this is our talks, this is who we're gonna talk to, this is when we're gonna come back. And you know, I mean, I don't expect it to be resolved in a month. But you know, you're asking us to put, even though it doesn't seem like a lot of money, you're asking us to invest in this thing. We don't have any idea when, if ever, this issue is gonna get resolved.
Jay, this would be a good follow-up topic for the next meeting.
I think so.
Yes, Jim.
With due respect, I don't see where that gets us anywhere. I think what it does is set this project back a month. With all due respect, we're not gonna know anymore today. It's definite, or a month from now that we know now. So delaying it only delays its operation. And it's going back to your point that, you know, it'd be clearly an improvement and a benefit to the community down there to get this going. I guess I just don't see why it makes sense to delay it.
I'm less concerned about transitioning, even if the worst case scenario is transitioning this facility to the schools. My concern is that they will tear it down to build a school. And that's where the not putting money into it now would suggest that we need a commitment from them that they will, regardless of how the outcome is, they will transition it and maintain it as a rec center.
Good luck with that.
Yeah, I mean, if it can't be a rec center, then they're going to level it and make it into a school. And then we are honestly wasting taxpayer county dollars on a facility that will not exist after 2030.
Having trouble understanding what the whole politics of that would be in 2030. Imagining that the school board would actually tear down the rec center.
They need schools.
I
They
know
need to
that.
build
I know
3
they
more
need-
schools.
There are other needs in the county that I'm sure would represent themselves
I
in
would
that
tend to,
particular battle.
I would tend to agree with Jim's comments, pardon me, while I silence this.
It's your mom take.
It is, all right, yeah. No, because I'll talk quickly. So I would tend to agree with you because I think the amount of the investment, if it can be covered by incremental revenue, is something we ought to consider and we ought to consider now. I totally agree with Maggie vis-a-vis a larger investment in terms of renovating, quote, or a larger renovation, more substantial renovation of the rec center. That we should not proceed on until we have more clarity. So if you'll excuse me, thank you.
Jay, following up on what our conversation was with those folks. Follow up. Would it do us any good or bad to delay this? And if we could meet with them in a month?
I mean, we can try to get it on the calendar. I don't think that we're gonna get, I mean, they'd have to go back to their board for any resolution. I see it more kind of when we're talking about having a joint meeting with our board and their board. It's to bring it up in that type of conversation.
Jay, does scope approval commit us to any dollar amounts?
Yes.
No, not yet. We signed the scope approval gives us the ability to sign contracts.
We don't have.
Right.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
So we have to get the contracts in to review them prior to
And that would be January.
January.
And just to clarify, it's a 40-year lease that started in 99.
Yes.
So we do have until
I think it's
39. And I can't speak for Cindy, but you know, we've looked at what the impact could be. We saw the impact at Oakmar, and we do believe by adding this benefit, we will significantly increase the pass holders, and you know, hopefully make the money that we're investing in the facility.
2039 is a whole different ballgame.
It's 2039.
Okay, if I'm adding correctly, 40 to 99 would get us to 39, correct?
Okay.
Well, I thought.
Mike, am I right?
Thought it was earlier than, I thought it was 90.
Approving this is really,
I think it's 90.
Do you have it right there, don't you? I'm looking at it. It was dated December 17th, 1999.
All right. Well, in that case.
So can we, and we can put it forward, can we commit to looking into that and then saying that even with the permit, we would move forward with it barring Sarah's lying eyes on what she's looking at? And if that's the case, we'll pause and bring it back in the beginning of January. Would that work?
That works.
And we can get back with you, Maggie, and with the, get the legal.
you're saying that delay this.
No, I'm saying if you guys would move it forward, we would commit to confirming that with legals. And if something is wonky there and it actually is 8 years from now, then we would pause and not sign the contract, bring it back to first, the next meeting in January, and then just say, our bad, let's do
So
it
again,
again.
we're moving it forward contingent upon the confirmation that it is 1999.
Right, if that works for everybody, if that works.
Consensus of the committee. Yes. Okay. Real say.
Just because I couldn't see from my vantage point. Maggie, are you comfortable with that?
Yes, I am. Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Okay. Next item is, just to clarify, we do have consensus to move this forward.
Yes.
With that condition.
With the condition.
With that condition, yes, sir.
Okay, Roxton. Who's up for that?
Hello, Kelly Davis, Project Manager, Planning and Development. I'm here for the Ruxtall Park Development Scope Approval. 2020 bond included project to develop Ruxtall Park into a new park. The new park facilities follow what the approved master plan was, what the elements from the approved master plan, which was approved in October of 2015. The elements that we were putting in is a picnic pavilion, parking, handicapped accessible trail, nature themed playground, open play space, and a fitness cluster. And that's pretty much everything that we're putting in at this point.
I'll add a little bit to that. This has been in the mail for some time. We got this property at a real bargain. And it's a very energetic community. I get inquiries about frequently, what's going to happen, when's it going to happen. So it's a very valuable property. And it's very energetic community inside the Beltway, which is unusual. So I'll ask for any questions or comments.
Move forward.
Let's move this forward.
Yes.
Okay, Trailside Park. Who's up for that?
Good evening. My name is Doug Tipsword. I'm a landscape architect planner with the Planning and Development Division. I'm returning to share with you the Trailside Park Master Plan amendment. We were here on November 9th for to share that, and tonight we'd be requesting action item. The park is located in the Lee District, adjacent to the I-95 495 interchange. The park primarily is a recreation facility, including 3 60-foot diamond ball fields and 1 smaller 50-foot diamond for Little League play. The current master plan only graphically shows athletic field lighting for fields 1 and 2. The new amendment would graphically clarify that all fields may be lit in the future. The lighting would be standard LED lighting to meet Fairfax County lighting ordinance and international dark sky compliant. We'd had a community outreach approach that included launching an informational webpage, a press release announcing the start of a 30-day public comment period, posted a park in the sign, and we distributed postcards to the adjacent neighbors. And the public was invited to comment by email or in person by attending the November 9th virtual board meeting. We did receive a handful of comments from the community, all of which were in favor of the proposal. And if the amendment is approved, planning staff will move forward with the submission of a 2232 application for DPD review. Any questions?
I have a comment.
So do I.
You know what my comment's gonna be?
Yes, yeah, there is no.
No, I get to
trail
go first. I get to go first. So if everybody would note, field 2, and there's a gray rectangle batting cage out in left field. If you look at the upper edge of that batting cage right there, that's right where my son's first home run. ever. So this park has a special place in my park.
And he alerted me to that. He very much did, and that was the first thing I was gonna say. The second thing is, there is no lead district, right?
So Lynn, what
Oh, I'm sorry.
Recuse yourself.
Franconia.
Better not.
Do you mean Franconia?
Franconia, update my talking points. Apologies. Franconia district.
That's right.
Census to move this forward.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you all. Nothing else to come before the Planning and Development Committee. We are. All righty. Okay, as far as how this is presented.
Welcome to the December 14th, 2022 meeting of the Fairfax County Park Authority Board. We start this evening with a public comment period. So I will reach out to Judy Peterson one more time to ask her if we've got anybody to speak tonight. Okay. Very good. Then we will start with a presentation, which is the FY22 Park Authority Annual CAFR Report. Welcome back.
Thank you, sir. It's good to be back.
It's all yours.
Thank you. Good evening, members of the board. My name is Rob Churchman. I'm the audit partner in charge of services to the county. Obviously, it includes yourself and schools and so forth. For those of you who have been part of this process in the past, or maybe part of it at another entity that you serve, there are required communications from my side of the shop to your side of the shop, auditor to auditee, at the end of an audit. They could be in written form, or they could be like we're doing today. These requirements have changed slightly from prior years. So again, if you've been part of this process in the past or another entity, the audit standards required some changes in the tone and texture of what we communicate, but for the most part, they're still the same type of communications. And also these standards are global as regards to the type of entity. So if I was speaking to a for-profit hospital, or if I was speaking to IBM or yourselves, I had to go through the same discussions. Now, having said that, there are going to be things in here you're going to say, Rob, that's not relevant to us. Yes, you're right. It's not relevant to you because they're global standards, but they require me to positively affirm to you these items aren't related to you, because they don't want the audit, the person listening to the communication to think, well, Rob just blew through something and didn't tell us everything. So I will spend several times saying, I'm positively affirming to you that this didn't happen, or that didn't happen, or this isn't relevant. I'm required to let you know my core service team that serves the Park Authority this year. Myself, again, as the engagement partner, signs the opinion and so forth. On every one of our jobs, we have a second partner. His or her job is to be a quality reviewer, to somewhat stay above the day-to-day machinations of an audit and stay above and keep focused on the quality and on the appropriateness of all the disclosures and the recordings and so forth. And that was Scott Anderson. And then my core team on site, well, virtually / onsite. Justin Mick was my manager, and Zach Lamorta was back again this year as our onsite or senior auditor, working through most of the testing. Now, agenda. I'm going to go through these items, and I forgot to say thank you so much for having this. I brought this up here. I've got something going on with my left eye, and I really can't see out of it. So I've been having the last night aloud, and I had to have this in front of me. I said I wasn't cheating. This is not the same thing you have up there, but I couldn't read it. But this is fantastic. I'm going to cover these areas as quickly as possible. I know you have other items on your agenda for the evening, and some of you have been here. I saw the sign downstairs about all the times everything was happening. Some of you have been here for a very long time, and I'm sure you want to get home to see your loved ones and so forth. But I'm going to cover these areas in order as presented here. So, what do you want to hear from me? What's the most important thing you want to hear from me? This slide. This is a slide you take home, you put on your refrigerator, like you did back in grade school. I didn't do that as often as I probably could have, because I wasn't the greatest student, but once in a while I got proud. We all did your books and looked at them for the fiscal year ended June 30th. And we found that they were fairly presented in all material respects, in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles, the top notchest, highest reward you can get from your auditor. And that also relates to our government auditing standards, because of the nature of some of your funding being government related, we had to do steps there for compliance and control. We found no matters there to report to you. Also, again, what you want to hear from your auditor. Stepping back a second, I make my slide deck so they can be useful for somebody who's not here. So I put this slide in, for example, to anybody who's looking at this outside in, not here to hear me talk, that tells you what internal control communications are, that what do we have to do, and how is internal control deficiency defined. I'm not going to read this whole slide to you. It comes straight out of the standards. But basically, there are three types of control matters that could happen. A deficiency, something very simple. A material weakness, where there is a significant fracture in your structure, where something didn't get recorded properly, or something didn't happen properly. And then there's a significant deficiency. Not significant, well, it is significant, that's the name of the term. It's not a material weakness. It's a step down, but it's something that we think if we saw, you would want to know about through this communication, as opposed to just hearing from me verbally and so forth. So the perfect thing to hear here also on this slide is the very bottom. We noted no deficiencies that we believe to be material weaknesses, what you want to hear from your auditor. Some of these areas are going to come across, if you weren't here and you just talking out of the blue, it's like, oh, this is ominous, uncorrected misstatements. The terms are required for every entity, but I'm required to let you know if I go through the audit and we suggest and you agree to record an entry, that would be perfect gap. And we had no suggestions of that this year that were corrected. We had really none that were uncorrected this year. What we have to do, because sometimes last year we presented to you, there was a small, again, we have to use the word misstatement, but a small correction that could have been made to the energy fund, but it wasn't material in the grand scheme of things. So nobody decided to make it. We both agreed, both sides of the party agreed not to make it last year. Well, because it was related to payables and expenses and so forth, if it doesn't get made one year, chances are it's going to get made the next year. So it kind of reverses itself out. So I need to make you aware that was still, after this year, that whole thing is gone. If an accrual is not made one year because it's made in the next year, after that second year cycle, the impact is all gone. So right here, very positive, but I needed to make you aware that took the second year this year for it to roll its way through your books. Next couple of slides are going to play off this four leaves of our presentation here, each one having its own slide. What I give you in my financial statement opinion is the only thing I give you. The statements are yours. They are the authority's financial statements. They're not me as the auditor's financial statements. So I'm required to let you know some things about your statements to help you pinpoint areas you may want to go look at in the future or this year. Your accounting policies are your policies. So you discuss in your footnotes to the financial statements significant policies you have for financial reporting, not for how you do some kind of internal control, procurement wise, something like that, for financial reporting purposes. And those are included in note 80 of your financial statements. This year we had two changes. One change in your policies was dictated by the people up in Connecticut who set the rules. And it was called GASB 87. And it was requirement of everybody across the government landscape, county, every other county and government in Virginia, it's required to put to calculate leases and present them differently than they have been put in the past. really had minimal impact on your financial statements. But I'm required to let you know that it was there. And there's a whole, as I said, there's no K, no F, talk to you if you wanted to understand what was going on, what happened there. And then note one, another change that happened is for the first time now, you have presented the foundation in your financial statements as its own column. In the past, it was deemed by management that it wasn't material to bring it in and so forth, and we didn't disagree. But this year they did decide to bring it in. Calling it a blended component unit is just a fancy word for saying it's got its own column on your statement of net position and so forth. So that's in there for the first time. Other than that, your policies from accounting reporting perspective did not change from prior year.
Quick question,
Yes,
does,
sir.
does the foundation have a separate audit from
They
ours?
do, yes, sir.
Thought they did, yes.
Yes, sir. And we, so when that happens, I basically say, listen, reader, this other firm audited that number. That's their numbers. Everything to the left of that is our numbers, all the other funds. So, and that's detailed in our opinion. One too far. Okay. I'm also related, and this is now we're getting to some things that can be much more relevant to commercial versus government, but it is relevant to you. Related parties. Anybody got Bitcoin? Anybody got currencies? FTX had a lot of related parties. Alameda Research, others, because those transactions weren't above board, and some of them didn't have a proper business sense, and some of them were well, 8 counts of against Bankman-Fried. Some of them were probably illegal, but the related parties can really impact how a reader of the financial statements can understand your activities and your numbers for the year. So we have to look at yours, just like we do with the county and everything else. Your related parties, we look to make sure that, from our understanding, that they have a business purpose, that there's no non-compliance with prohibiting or restricting your relationship with the related party. In some instances, the very last one there, it could be difficult identifying who ultimately controls the related party entity. So in your respect, we look at your relationships. We found nothing that was we thought was unusual, that was not properly disclosed in your financial statements and so forth. But again, I'm required to positively affirm that to you. Okay. There are transactions. If you're an entity that was getting into a lot of unusual, significant transactions on a yearly basis, again, this is much more relevant to maybe like a venture capital firm or something like that, where they're getting into relationships and leasing and lending and trying to get money in the door and so forth. If you had significant transactions, we would have to look at them, and we have to make sure they're recognized properly in your financial statements. Again, you not that you're boring, but you don't get into a lot of risky things, whether it be investments or transaction wise. But again, I'm required to positively affirm to you that we looked for anything that seemed to be out of the normal course of business for an authority like yourself, or otherwise would be timing or size and nature would be unusual. We found that there was nothing in that matter during our audit. Unless you are, when I'm speaking to a school board, this slide is not relevant at all. But when I'm speaking to almost everybody else, it's relevant. School boards generally, their activity funds are generally on a cash basis. So that's why that's not relevant to them. Estimates. Almost everything that financial statement related is going to have some kind of estimate somewhere in your financial statements, because you can't tie everything down to an invoice, a bank confirmation, a physical deposit slip that showed the money going in and so forth. So you have to make estimates. Your main estimates are very similar to everybody else. The lives of your capital assets. You estimate how long they are, then you depreciate it down to when they go to zero, life-wise. Your pension and OPEB benefits. Those actuarial science matters that get recorded in your financial statements that are projecting out your liability based on 30 years out into the future and bringing it back down to this balance sheet and or statement in a position. We are required to look at these estimates and make sure they make sense, for lack of a less precise audit term. Make sure they're comparable, consistent from year over year. Make sure they are not out of line per se with your peers. If you were saying you're going to get 12% back on your investments and everybody else in the world is getting 6%, if that, then we would have pause, say, no, let's make sure this, show us how you got this. Maybe you got investments early on in whatever company has gone through the roof. Sure. But we have to make sure also that you are not changing your estimates without cause each year. And now then this slide is very relevant in the commercial area. In the, somebody who's in a venture capital firm may change their estimate of certain things, to change their tax status, to change their bottom line one way or the other, whichever they want to do it. So we saw nothing that said that your estimates were out of line. and that there have been, changing, spiking one way or another year over year. And again, that's what you want to hear from your auditor. And finally, as like an overall discussion, we found your statements, our disclosures are neutral, consistent, and clear. Again, what you want to hear from your auditors. The most important part of this side is on the right-hand side, but I put this on here also. If we were to do non-audit work for you, I'd have to tell you about it. If we were helping you prepare your financial statements, if we were on the county side, there's a one federal form that has to be submitted each year. And we have to assert to certain things in the form, just like the county does. So we have to do that non-attest work. For you, we don't have any of those going on. So I have to apologize for that to you. With regards to independence, this is what's really important on this slide. If an auditor is not independent of their auditee, the relationship, then the pieces of paper they give you are useless, because you cannot confirm in your mind and in the people that read your statements that we are independent and that we are objective. So we go through steps to make sure our people in our firm are independent. If my wife was your controller, I'd be in real trouble sitting here right now. You probably would too, because she's not really good double-sided accounting. But that's oh, this is on. She could be watching me. Oops, sorry, hon. We're not aware of anything that would cause us to be not independent with you, our relationships, your vendors, and so forth. But also, what's really important, it's not only actual independence issues, the appearance. So again, if my wife worked for a client of mine, but had nothing to do with financial stuff and so forth, somebody could still say, well, he's got to be lack of independence. His wife works for the entity. Well, there's the ways that can happen, and everything's fine. We're not aware of anything that our relationship with yourselves, and county, and all the other pieces of the county that made our firm, any of our people, lack independence in serving you. And I just realized I should have told you one more thing earlier on. I make my slides so that somebody who's not here could read it. So I don't go over every bullet point. Some people get up and say includes disagree. No, I don't do that because your time is precious. This slide, it looks ominous. First two columns, he's got the word difficulties in there. He's got disagreements, so forth. Well, their boilerplate required silos that we have to communicate to you on. We encountered no significant difficulties dealing with management and getting information from them for audit purposes, to backup support for accounts and so forth. And we had no disagreements with managers over how to report something, disclose something, and so forth. Again, these are two things that look ominous, but they're exactly what you want to hear from your auditor. Also, if I had a situation where I had to there was a contentious matter between an auditor and auditee, and the auditor felt that he or she had to go outside of the main team to consult with somebody else, whether it be the state, whether it be the people in Newark, the people in Connecticut who make the rules, or whether it be maybe even another firm, I'd be required to let you know that. That did not happen here again, but I'm positively required to affirm that to you. And then the far right one here, manager representation letter. As I mentioned earlier, the statements are yours. They're not mine. The audit standards require that you assert to us certain things each year as the auditor. They're very boring. If you have trouble sleeping, you can look at this year's manager rep letter and you'll be put right out. They're boring because they're very straightforward, they're very commonsensical, and they're very consistent across all firms, because basically the AICPA puts out what they want you to have in the letter. We get that letter, and some things in the letter are, for example, that you acknowledge that they're your internal controls, they're your financial statements. You provided us all legal matters we need to know about. You provided us, not in your case generally, but maybe the county, they had a regulatory auditor come in from the feds, give me their report so I can see what's going on. Basically, things that I would want to know that help me shape my opinion on the current year's financial activities. If I was ever to provide my letter to a client and they would say, well, Rob, number 3 and 7, I really can't positively affirm to you about that. I can't, it's not correct. The way they're written, if it's a no answer, then there's an issue. So if that happened, I'd have to pause, say, what am I not learning? What are they not telling me? What's hidden that I would need to know to give my opinion? That did not happen here. But again, the standards don't want to allow me to just blow through that and not say it to you, because they want me to positively affirm it to you. What am I? Oh, there we go. Make sure I didn't go too far. Okay. The first column here is I've never had it happen in 35 years with government accounting. It happens to my colleagues in regular account, not regular, not that you're irregular, in commercial accounting. Shopping the opinion. If an entity, again, I'll go back to venture capital, they're their goal is to raise money quickly and get process off the ground. So if they want to record something one way and their auditor says, no, you can't, that's not GAAP, they may go to audit firm B or firm C until they find one that says, yeah, go ahead, we'll let you go with it. You know, sort of like Bernie Madoff's accountant. We're not aware of that happening here. We're not aware of any discussions that the authority had with anybody outside of, in an audit perspective, outside of our relationship. But again, I have to tell you that that's true. And then we talk with the authority all year round about accounting things that have come up, new pronouncements, new disclosures, maybe a new relationship you have with an entity. If those were ever, if those communications were ever a factor in whether or not we were retained as your auditor or not, I'd be required to tell you that. Now, we're under a contract with you in the county. We had these communications in the normal course of business. Nothing was untoward and so forth. But again, I have to tell you, fraud and illegal acts, that looks very ominous. It's right with going concern. We, as an auditor, unless you have us come in to do a fraud audit because you have a fear of something, we're not required to search out fraud. We are required to what we call professional skepticism, keeping our ears open, keeping our antennas up. If something happens, we're doing our testing. Don't just take an answer from somebody as, okay, that's fine, I'll move on down the road. Corroborate it and so forth. It can come up in normal business. I audited a major well, the city which Virginia's capital is in. I found a fraud by just doing capital asset testing, looking at additions for the year, something standard auditor would do. Well, it was after Hurricane Gaston, I think, whichever one went up the James River, just flooded everything. There was a person inside city council staff who had access to city council funds that they could use. And he decided to make steal money. And he stole it by sitting in fictitious invoices. Well, me just going down the road, doing my job, keep my antennas up, not searching for anything, happened to see 4 or 5 invoices from 4 or 5 different companies with generic names like ABC Roofing or whatever. They all had the word debris spelled wrong.
Yes.
So when one word that's not always used, you know, kind of a unique word, and it's spelled wrong. Well, we started unraveling things, and it found out he'd stolen $1 million over the course of several months. They would recover it all through bond. He was bonded because he was a staff member, but still, I did not go searching for that. I did my work that was proper, but I kept my mind open when I saw something that was weird. Nothing like that happened here. I always go through that story and everybody's like, what happened here? Nothing. I just like to tell a story to kind of put it in perspective of what the auditor is required to do through his or her standards each year. And then the last one here, going concern, that sounds ominous also. You know, we have a going concern issue? No, much more corporate related. The standards require that if we have any understanding or thought or thinking that because of your fiscal activities, you may not be able to sustain yourself for the next 12 months, then we would be required to check into that and report on that in our audit report. Nothing like that happened here. It's very rare in governments. I think the only one that's really happened in Virginia, and it's not really a going concern per se, when Bedford, the town of Bedford, folded back into the county. But again, very uncommon, but it does happen. Nothing like that gave me any fears or pause to tell you about going concern issues here at the authority. Those are my required communications. This next slide, I just want to tell you, your statements are thick. You've got a lot of information in there. The core of the statements with the footnotes, that's what we really audit upon and give you an assurance that they are fairly presented. To the left and the right of those are other areas. To the right of yours, if you're laying it down old school, down on the screen, to the right of yours are some tables in back that are called require supplementary information, pension tables and so forth, trend tables. We're not required to audit that by the standards, but we do look at it and make sure it makes sense, make sure that the numbers there agree to the footnote numbers and so forth, because generally in the back, it's a little bit more detailed than what's in the footnotes. It kind of folds up into it and let you know if we have any issues with that. We don't give an opinion on it, but as Sashi will tell you, I look at all those things and I've given her plenty of suggestions on how to make sure this number works and that number works and so forth. So, but again, I don't give any opinion on that. And then there's other things in the front of your book, like your transmittal letter and so forth, statistical sections and so forth, that those are in the back. Those are items that we don't give an opinion on either, but we do look at them. Your trend tables for fund balance over years and so forth. We do look at those and make sure nothing appears, for lack of a better term, weird. Something in the back says it's $100,000 and up front it says it's $1 million because it's got one extra zero in it. and so forth. And so we check those to make sure before things get issued. Because we want you to have the best quality product you can. Not that we're doing much to do that. We're just checking all the quality product that the team behind me has already put together. But we do check it to make sure nothing is materially inconsistent from what we know from the audit and the steps we performed. And then this last slide, just to let you know, again, if you're bored and can't get to sleep, I would highly recommend, 96 isn't too bad. A 91 conduit debt obligations, whoa, not really relevant to you, but I'm letting you know that some of these things are coming down the pike that may adjust your books going forward. Compensated absences hasn't really, the concept of that vacation, sick accrual and so forth, hasn't really been modified or updated since the 90s. And as you can imagine, since then, we've had a lot of changes in the environment of benefits for personnel and so forth. So they're trying to bring it up to date, up to speed and so forth. We will discuss with management any of these that they need to implement this year. 96 will be relevant because 96 relates to, we just did leases. That was non-cloudy leases. 96 relates to, and everybody's getting cloudy nowadays, right? So the leases that your subscription-based leases, whether, well, we don't have AOL anymore, but I guess Amazon Web Services, other things like that. There are now rules out there on how to record those in your financial statements, if you have those, and if they're material. And those are my required communications. I try to keep it as relatively quick as possible. So I know you got an agenda. I'll be happy to answer any questions if you like, or I put my stuff here on this last slide, and it's honest. I mean, I have clients call me or email me off season anytime they go to a conference and they're like, I saw this. Can you explain it to me? Sure. Let's sit down and talk. If you ever need to reach me, I'm right there 24/7, 365.
Questions? Comments? Concern?
Stunned them into a sense of
Thank you.
bewilderment.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Happy holidays.
Thank you much. Yeah, and I will leave because no one wants an order out anymore. You have to. And I'm going to go do this thing, this dog and pony show tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. in Virginia Beach. So
All right.
I'm going to get on the road, but I will spend some money in the county before I go.
Good luck.
Careful.
Be safe.
Thank you. Take care.
Leave early.
Drive
Yeah.
slow.
Oh, I'm leaving right now, man.
All right, on the administrative items, countywide admin item number 1 is the adoption of the minutes of November 9th, 2022 Park Authority Board meeting.
Second.
So moved. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed say nay. That motion carries. Action items. Countywide, action item number 1 is the reappointment of Michael Gallion to the Fairfax County Park Foundation Board.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Nay, that motion carries. Countywide A2, reappointment of Kevin Todd to the Fairfax County Park Foundation Board.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. That motion carries. Countywide A3, approval to advertise proposed fee adjustments and the date of virtual public comment meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Nay, that motion carries. Countywide A4, FY 2023 mid-year budget review, Fund 80,000, Park Revenue and Operating Fund.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. In the Mount Vernon District, A5, scope approval, Laurel Hill Park, the Central Green Phase 2 development.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Hey, that motion carries. In the Springfield District, A6, scope approval, Cub Run. Sully District, I'm sorry. Cub Run Rec Center, Child Development Renovation.
So moved with the conditions that we discussed during the committee.
I'll second that.
Okay, any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? say nay. That motion carries. In the Providence District, A7, scope approval, the Ruxnall Park Development.
So moved. Second.
Discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hey, that motion carries. In, where the heck is that? Oh, the Franconia District. I'm looking for the L. It's the Franconia District. A8, Trailside Park Master Plan Amendment, Cynthia.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. That motion carries. Information items, countywide information item number 1 was the Planning and Development Division Quarterly Project Status Report. And countywide information item number 2 was the summer programs update. Chairman's matter. Happy holidays to everyone. Hope you have a great holiday. We've had occasion to gather over the last couple of weeks. And very festive occasion. Good to see all of you. Welcome to all the staff that we've never met.
Yeah, I know.
This is really, really cool. So we look forward to getting to know you in the coming year. And we're losing a lot of institutional knowledge, but we're gaining a bunch of new people with new ideas and new thoughts, and that's kind of cool too. So welcome to the new positions. We look forward to working with each and every one of you. And with that, I'll turn it over to you.
I hate it when you turn it over to me a minute before 8 because I feel like Linwood
Oh,
is
yeah.
gonna stare daggers.
We're
into me.
supposed to.
don't.
That's exactly what we're
Is that
supposed to
what you're
do.
trying to do?
Yes, and
Okay.
what we're trying to do.
So this is gonna be quick.
I don't think I'm gonna make it home
Good.
before dark.
Hopefully. And thank you for that comments about losing really a lot of institutional knowledge and all the new faces. And when the board's over, I'll ask new staff if you guys can just really quickly stand up and just tell everybody your name so I can meet them. So first golf. So next slide. Golf Fairfax's last golf pass sale of the year yielded $607,000 from November 11th through the 30th. There's a 30% increase when compared to last year's sale. These amazing results are attributable to an excellent overall team effort with high energy staff promotion, excellent customer service, and above average course conditions, coupled with top-notch management and enhanced marketing efforts. These clearly were a winning combination. So we're very happy for that. And next slide. I love it that they give me notes and it's literally says, you know how much I love piggies. And I'm going to read it exactly like that because I do love piggies, and there are more to love at Frying Pan Farm Park. We're going to share a video, which is our holiday cheer to you all, because you can't not smile when you watch this video. They just arrived in November. Nike, Patty, and Maeve are new mommies, and they are busy keeping up with their piglets' appetites. More than 6,800 visitors have already looked at this video on social media.
That's great.
I mean, it's just great. And then speaking of Frying Pan Farm Park, the Holly Lights at Frying Pan were a really phenomenal success. I got the opportunity to go with my family. I believe my son, he says it's about almost everything, but this is the second best day of the year. So staff put on a phenomenal event, and thinking of ways to, is this the video? Thinking of ways to make it bigger. Go.
Nice.
So it was a phenomenal thing. I highly recommend any of you who want to bring your families next year. And then last slide, hot off the press, I just wanted to echo Bill's statement. We had a wonderful time at the holiday party, and I just wanted to share some photos. So next slide. That was actually the first time I'd ever met Faisal in person.
Yeah.
So it was great. It was very nice seeing you in person. I think I actually touched his arm to make sure he was. Next slide. Some staff. You can keep going. Next slide. And hold here, because the next picture I have to share, because it's too funny not to share, but I want everybody to know that I wasn't thinking what my face looks like. I'm thinking as our chairman of our board of supervisors was talking. So next slide.
Not in the minutes.
I mean, I don't even know. I have to go back. I don't even know. I think I was agreeing with that. Honestly, I think I was agreeing with him for Judy's comment about his comment about Judy's quotes, making him seem smarter than he is. I think I was agreeing with that. I don't know why that is what agreement looks like on my face, but I promise for those of you that were there.
It looks to me like you're saying,
Now that you've.
really?
It does.
That's what it looks like.
It does. It does. I also just wanted to point out that I know that the auditor came in and to go back to the slides about the fee, and we're talking about the growth in 1.5 million. That's really where the money, not the money, a lot of work goes into staff trying to figure out that growth. So I want to thank everybody working for that. And then we just had the auditor come in, and I realized, I mean, he's funny, but I realize it seems to be really boring, but a lot of work goes into making it very boring. And so in order to be able to sit here and just nod our heads, I mean, everybody back there, I mean, that's a tremendous amount of work. It's, you know, our auditors and our financial people don't just work on tax day or budget day. It's a lot of stuff. So thank you to those folks who are here. I'll compliment the rest of my staff on other stuff later on, but we're going to highlight our financial people. And that's all I got.
The Friends of Frying Pan are having their annual party tomorrow at noon. So I will be there if anybody wants to join me.
I will be there as well.
Mike Thompson wishes everyone a Merry Christmas and a Happy Holiday. He had to drop off. So we'll start with Faisal.
Well, it was good seeing everyone after a long time, and probably the first time for so many of you guys. And we should do that more often. And happy holidays to everyone. And with that, I'll pass.
Thank you. Cynthia.
Wish I could be there. Miss you all. It was great seeing you, at least virtually. And if I drop off, it is because I am about to lose all power here. So everyone have a wonderful holiday.
Thank you. Abena sent her best regards as well. So now we'll go Kyle.
Just say happy holidays and no pass.
Ron.
Yeah, happy holidays, everybody, and I want to thank the staff for the work they've been doing and thank the new people for showing up because we really need you. We've got a big hole that we're gonna fill you all in.
Good, Jim.
Plan to that. Wish you guys a wonderful holiday and also a happy and healthy new year.
Absolutely. Linwood.
Heartfelt happy holidays to everybody.
Kid.
Same thing. Wish everybody happy holidays, Merry Christmas and New Year's, and any other holiday that you may be celebrating. And welcome to our new folks and the staff. I think you'll find this board is just a blast to work with.
Yeah.
Thank you, Bill. I also wanted to say, I thought the foundation, our own, and this evening's events were all very beautifully organized and great fun besides. So thanks to all the staff who helped to put that together. Thanks to those who made this organization this year in particular possible, and best wishes to you all for Merry Christmas, great holidays. Super 2023.
Again, happy holidays. I hope you have a wonderful time with your families and friends and have safe holiday. And thank you for everything that you do. It means a lot. You make a huge difference. Thank you.
Now, staff that we have not met, would you please stand up, introduce yourselves and tell us who you are and what you do? Don't all rush at once.
Especially even if you're in a
Yes.
different position, yes.
If you're new in the last year,
Oh, I'm not new to the park authority.
not the
but
park authority, but to
In your
this.
position.
So I'm the budget manager. My name is Nicole Barnes, and I'm excited to be here and to see all of you in person, because I have been on the Zoom meetings for a little while, but this is my first time really. in person. Thank you.
Welcome, Nicole.
Okay.
My
name's Kim Eckert. I'm with the Park Operations Division. I've actually been here for 5 years.
Don't fall.
I'm trying to watch that food underneath me. there.
I didn't think there was alcohol downstairs.
So, thanks for having us.
Okay.
Tanya Mills, I'm the new senior fiscal administrator for the financial management branch. Been with the county 11 years roundabout, but this is again, like Nicole, attending the virtual meetings, but first time in person.
Welcome, Tanya.
I am the IT program manager for the Park Authority, formerly known as ASB. We are now called ITSB, and we have absorbed GIS. I've been here 12 years.
And it's Julie.
And my name is Julie.
Ah, That helps.
Not new, but I'm.
No, I know.
I got you already.
Anybody
Your
else?
position though? Oh, okay.
Who else we got? That young man.
Most of, so that's great, but I'm Brendan Hannafin, the planning and development.
There you go.
And good evening, I'm Laura Gray. Today is officially my 10-month anniversary here with the Park Authority. But I'm your resource management director.
Great.
Good.
Who else?
Hi, I'm Susan Kalish. I'm the new marketing and communications director. I'm being half of Judy Pedersen. My other better half is sitting right there, but don't introduce himself. And I think I met you guys all at the party. That's the end of the time.
And I'm Ben Boxer. I'm the new public information officer. It's been a pleasure meeting you over the last couple of weeks. Really, it's been an awesome experience seeing the folks leave and talk so highly of the Park Authority. I'm just so fortunate to be here.
Where you from?
I'm actually from Fairfax. I grew up here. I've been in the county 16 years.
Okay.
I worked with Public Works, NCS, and I just came from the housing department. So
Oh, very good.
Great. I think that's it.
That's it.
Is that everybody?
That's everybody. Well, thank you, everybody, for all you do, and it's been great. It's certainly good. Like I said, great seeing you guys again. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas. Be safe and be healthy. And with that, we are adjourned for this year.
Very good. Thank you.
Hey,
Did you